Good evening. Good evening. This meeting will come to order. This is the July 2015 Zoning Board of Appeals. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dubois has advised us that he will not be joining us tonight. Mr. Tizzola?
Here.
Mr. Haberman?
Here.
Ms. Ferrante?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Vicino?
Here.
Ms. Eggleston?
Here.
And also Mr. Soda will not be joining us tonight. Thank you.
Also present this evening are Stephen Harris, our zoning officer, Meg Green, our recording secretary. Let's see, Mr. Soda is not here tonight. Mr. Soda is a regular. So Mr. Thomas, will you fill in for Mr. Soda tonight?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. If anyone feels that there might be a conflict of interest with one of the commissioners and your application, please let us know. What we would like to do this evening is item number 3 on the agenda is a pretty smaller item, and rather than having that person wait, I want to move them up to be number 1. So, Mr. Haberman, will you read in item number 3?
Item number 3, 262 Seaside Avenue, Zone R, 12.5, Maria Cresarius, owner, various sections 4-1-4, front yard projection to 21 feet where 26 feet permitted for deck, map 44, block 432A, parcel 14.
Okay, item number 3. Maria? You see her, Mr. Harris? I thought you said you might have seen her. Item number 3. Okay, all right, well, we'll just put it aside again. We'll try again later. All right. Go ahead. Item number 1.
Number 1, 553 West Avenue, DO 25, Brian Stone, Esquire, attorney for Grillo Services, LLC, appellant, with consent of Kingdom Life Christian Church owner, various sections 3-6-4-2, side yard setback to 15 feet where 200 feet required, 60.25 where 200 required for recycling operation, map 42, block 335, parcel 1.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I didn't complain about being shifted back, but I'm happy that I'm first again. So,
okay.
For the record, I am attorney Brian Stone with the Pellegrino Law Firm, and I represent the applicant Grillo Services, LLC. With me tonight is our LJ and Michael Grillo, who are the principals of Grillo Services, and Fred Mascia, who's a senior project engineer with Ty and Bond, who's the design engineer for the project that they're proposing for this particular site. The property, which is the subject of this appeal at 553 West Avenue, an address that Ms. Green knows that I will remember very well because I made a mistake the first time around on it and had 533. But it's a 57.36 acre parcel of land. It's unique in that it was former watershed land of the South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority. It's what is known under the state of Connecticut regulations as Class 3 land, which in simple terms means that it wasn't, the watershed wasn't directly servicing what was projected to be a public water supply. And so, being familiar with this because I served on the board at the Regional Water Authority, the Regional Water Authority has a goal of trying to sell Class 3 land while protecting it because it is part of a potential watershed, but using the money they generate from that and from other things to buy Class 1 and Class 2 land, which really is what protects current water supply in watersheds. So the Water Authority sold this land to the Kingdom Life Church in 2001, and I guess that they plan to build a church. For whatever reason, I don't know, those plans never came to fruition, and so they put the property on the market, and Grillo Services has contracted to purchase that property contingent upon being able to develop the property in accordance with their plans. The proposed use of the property is for recycling of leaf and grass clippings. Grillo is a manufacturer, but they're a recycling of organic product manufacturer. So they make leaf compost, they make soil, they do mulch processing, topsoil screening, and processing and sale of specialty soils. That's their business. They have a facility, a much larger facility on Oronoke Road. They're looking to try to acquire properties so that they have better control of their operation. And this site was ideally suited for them, in part because of the nature of the property, which is, as we said, watershed land, so it's a lot of wetlands, it's a lot of floodplain, it's protected by restrictive covenants to protect it, which were imposed by the Water Authority at the time of the original sale. So those actually run in favor of the city of Milford. So most of this property is not developable, and it's frankly ideally suited for this type of organic operation that the Grillos are proposing. The variance is as you read, a variance of section 3.6.4.2 for a side yard and front yard setback. Part of that comes from the definition of structure. As you'll see, and if you've looked at the plans, they store their equipment in bins. They're concrete bins. They're not attached to the ground. They're, I think, 2x3 blocks that they pile and create a bin, which they'll put their mulch in, store soils, and they also sell some stone that they acquire and bring in as part of their process. Those structures, because they are identified as structures under your regulations, and I reviewed that with Mr. Sulkus, and we agreed. We agreed that they were structures. Have to comply with the setback requirements. Now, this property is located in the DO 25 zone, which requires all the setbacks in that zone are 200 feet, which obviously is very unusual to have a 200-foot setback. And I assume the rationale was because the nature of the DO 25, which is a design office, 25-acre zone, so a minimum of 25 acres, is to have setbacks to accommodate a development where you'd be buildings which are allowed to go up to 60 feet in height. The problem with this site, and I'm not going to bore you, I'm going to ask our engineer who will do a much better job of presenting the nature of this site and why it's impossible to really have a reasonable development of this site if you have 200-foot setbacks because of the usable nature of that site. So under your regulations, we have to show that there are special conditions or circumstances arising from the land itself, which is peculiar to that land, which prevents the reasonable use of the land. And with that, I'd like to call on our engineer to go through the plan and briefly the proposed site plan as well, but to show why this site is so difficult to develop and why we need this variance. Thank you.
For the record, my name is Fred Mesha. I'm a senior project manager with Ty & Bond, offices in Shelton, Connecticut. Now, I have an easel with some plans, just asking the chairman which is the best way he would like me to face that.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Which way would you want it to face?
Whatever way you would like. We'll bring it just a little bit closer here. If you want to use that and you're flipping through it and you want to do your presentation from that, you can disconnect the microphone, you know.
For the commission to see this, the public's not going to be able to see the entire plan.
Yeah, that's fine the way you have it because you're presenting it to us.
Okay. As Attorney Stone mentioned, the site is 57.4 acres. And on this plan, basically it's the same plan that was submitted in your package, but I highlighted it. The outer perimeter I highlighted in solid red color. That's the property line. Inside this property line, I showed the 200-foot setback, which is, on that drawing, is a dashed line. Other items that affect the property is, out of the 57 acres, 42 of it is deed restriction, either preservation land or non-buildable. Basically, when the water company sold the property to the church, they deemed a certain portion of the property to be not developed. And that area, I'm just going to walk over to the map and show you. Entire area. So once you take that 42 acres out of 57, it leaves about 15 acres that should be usable. But that 15 acres also has other restrictions on it. The orange line that goes through the middle of it is the Iroquois gas pipeline. Iroquois gas will only allow us to travel over the pipeline with a driveway, but not do any activity, any work over the pipeline. So that takes about 3/4 of an acre out of the buildable area. There's 100-year floodplain elevation that's in the property, and then there's a couple inaccessible areas which I'll point to. A small portion next to the hotel, and a small portion here. So all the yellow area is the developable area, but 2 of the developable areas are not interconnected. So that gets it down to about 7 3/4 acres of usable land. The 200-foot setback along the north part of the property, all along I-95, if we take that area out and not put a building in there, we end up with about 2.5 acres of buildable area. So starting out with a 57-acre parcel of land under a DO 25 office zone without any zoning waivers, there's 2.5 acres buildable. And they're not even interconnected because they're separated by the gas line. So that's the existing condition of this site with the numbers. I'll bring up the next photo.
You can move that closer if you want.
All the area that we're looking to develop on the site is in the yellow area. And what's in there is...
Actually, you can put it right alongside him over there. Okay, all right. But if you speak on it, you're going to have to come up with it.
Yeah, bring it back here. And
put it right next.
I know the plan by heart.
Put it kind of next to him. That's fine. We can see it from there. Okay, that's best. I thought you were asking if we got there. That's best.
So once this project gets developed, we're proposing a driveway coming in off West Avenue. And there's 2 large rectangles here in blue. The first one is the office retail area. If you're familiar with their operation down in Orinoco Road, you pull into the site, there's a small building, you come in there, they got a service counter there, they also have office space and bathroom facilities and a kitchen for the employees. So they're going to replicate that here, and actually the structure they're proposing to use is a log cabin structure, Cape Cod style house. The other structure is a dry storage area. So either equipment or products that can't be out in the rain are stored inside that area. It's basically a Quonset hut style construction, and I think it's around 3,000 square feet. The other structures that Attorney Stone was talking about are along I-95. And if any of you are familiar with their operation down on Roanoke Road, or almost any wholesale provider of mulch stones, they basically build storage bins out of concrete block, 2 feet high, 3 feet wide, 6 feet long, and they stack them like Lego blocks. Basically, it's a 25 by 25 area that allows materials to get dumped in there, and then when the payloader comes to load trucks, it has an area to scoop, and they push against the wall, and they basically load it. I know they mentioned about retail, but this is not retail like a Home Depot or Lowe's. You're not going to go in there and buy a 2 cubic foot bag of mulch. You're going to go in there with a pickup truck and buy a half yard, or to maybe a larger truck, 5, 10, 15 yards. And really their idea is, where they have a lot of landscape contractors coming in with trucks carrying brush, logs, and mulch materials that will turn into mulch. They'll drop that material off, the Grillos will stockpile it, but the same landscape contractor, if he needs mulch, his empty truck, he can load with mulch, and then he goes and does his job. So they will sell to single homeowners, but like I said, you won't go in there to buy 1 2 cubic foot bag of mulch. They're selling it in bulk. This next drawing is a blow-up of the site plan, which concentrates on the areas that we're looking to build the buildings. It's the same orientation as the previous plan. To your right, the first large rectangle is the office retail center. The other large rectangle is the dry storage building. And then along I-95 as well as here, I believe there's like 23 or 24 storage bins for materials. And what's in there is similar to what their existing site is: sand, swimming pool sand, crushed stone from pea stone gravel all the way up to 2-inch stone, topsoil, mulch. They sell mulch in 4 different colors, and it's all materials that are manufactured further into the site, but they bring it up to those bins so that when customers come in and they want to load it with their payloaders or bobcats, they load from those bins and they load the trucks, and the trucks go back out to West Avenue. The other slides or boards I have. I don't believe this was in your package, but this is the rendering of the retail storage building, and the company they plan to use is actually a log cabin manufacturer, and they plan on building it. As you can see, it's a Cape Cod style office building, which is normally built as houses, but this one is going to be fit up with their office, retail center, and some accommodations for the employees. The dry storage building, you can recognize as a typical Quonset hut. It's going to be built on an 8-foot high foundation on both sides, and then the Quonset hut is built on top of that. This way they have area for dry storage, or if they bring equipment in, trucks and payloaders, everything can fit inside the building. It's going to be around 30 feet high. This last plate on the lower right-hand side is a section through what the bin storage areas will look like. And basically, you probably see them all over the place. When DOT does highway works, they usually go into community parking lots and they temporarily store soil from a project. They take the concrete blocks, build a storage bin, and store soil until they have a place to move it. Very similar construction. The blocks are 4 blocks high, so it's about 8 or 9 feet high, and the footprint is 25 by 25. And that's what's being proposed along I-95.
Okay, are you available for questions, or is Mr. Stone going to answer the questions that we might have?
Depending on the questions, it'd be maybe
Well,
between both of us.
you're up right now, so maybe.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions for this gentleman? Mr. Haberman?
Just so I understand, so trucks will be coming in off of West Street, going in with whatever material they have, taking it to the far back where you recycle it and do things to it and put it and bring it back out into the bins so that commercial vehicles come in and buy it from you and depart.
That's pretty much your operation.
And I assume the trucks are going to be coming down West Ave, down from Bick Drive, or your...
The majority of trucks will be coming down from West Ave.
Yeah.
Because
From
Bick Drive, Schoolhouse Road. Their current operation, most of the trucks come off I-95, down Schoolhouse, which turns into Bick, down to the current operation. So they would come down West Avenue.
That other question was, there was a comment made by Attorney Stone that this is the best spot for this kind of business, and I didn't quite understand why this is the best spot for it.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Attorney Stone, I think, mentioned that this was the best spot for this business. I mean, this was suited, this parcel of property. So I was just curious if you could expand on why this is the best parcel of land for this business.
I'm not saying that it's the best spot for the use. I'm saying that it is the best use for the spot, right? Because you have an environmentally sound use as on a site which has environmentally sensitive areas. And that's the primary reason. I can tell you, just as an aside, last night there was a golf tournament yesterday for the Watershed Fund of the Regional Water Authority, a fundraiser, and I don't play golf, but I go to the dinner because I'm on the Watershed Fund board, and so I talked to my friends about this project, and they thought it was great, and for that reason.
All right, I have some questions, so if you want to answer the questions, either one of you. Okay. My question is...
Whichever one of us is more appropriate,
okay.
I'm happy to answer the question.
My question is, you're proposing to manufacture the product there?
Correct.
Correct. You mentioned stone. Are you going to have any kind of gravel operation? Or?
No.
So,
they bring that in.
So you will have equipment there to manufacture this?
Yes.
Okay. And this is all being proposed after we whittle down the size of the whole property. We're down to 2.5 acres. So that's the actual usable piece of property.
Well, obviously, with the variance, we have more than 2.5 acres. I'm sorry. With the variance, obviously, we move back up to closer to 5 or 6 acres. There's no way that you could do this operation in 2.5 acres, which is why we're requesting the variance. But I would submit, if you looked at this site, any use, whether it's us or anybody else, they're going to be before you looking for a variance. I just think this is, from the standpoint of that site, it's an ideal use. That's just my opinion. I know there's a lot of people here that are interested in this application. I know because we were talking to them outside before the hearing. In fact, I had to break it up so he could come in because you were getting started. But this is only the first step in the process for us. We're obviously going to have to go to planning and zoning. This is not a use that exists in the zoning regulations. We're going to need a special exception. It's going to require a 2/3 vote, and at that, all the issues that relate to the use will be judged by planning and zoning, and if they don't agree that it's appropriate, then obviously they won't approve us. But I think we're hopeful that they will, and we're hopeful that the neighbors will recognize what the other possibilities are on that site and how much more beneficial this would be even for them.
Okay, thank you. Hours of operation? Please identify yourself, sir.
Michael Grillo, president of Grillo Organic and Grillo Services. Hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and on Saturday, 7 to 3, and closed Sunday.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for these gentlemen? Mr. Vicino?
Okay, couple things. We'll get an easy one out of the way first. You had mentioned 3,500, I'm sorry, 3,000 square feet for the storage facility. How big is the office space?
The office is two floors, and gross floor area is 3,000 square feet. The Quonset hut's actually 3,200 square feet.
Okay.
I was playing with some numbers, which I'll
Okay.
relate to you when you're done. That's why I know that.
So bring me up to what you think is the best map to help orient me to traffic patterns within that property. Like, where are you going to bring the material and do some of the refining work and some of the manipulation of that stuff? So can you show me where you enter from West Ave? Okay, so that's kind of depicted there.
Come stop in front of the office.
Okay,
They inspect the trucks, make sure it's the material that should be there. If somebody has stuff on their truck that's not supposed to be here, they turn them away. Trucks will be doing, if it's leaves during the fall, will be dumped in this area here. If it's brush, parts of trees, log stumps,
can you pull the mic so that everyone can hear your discussion, because I think it's interesting. Thank you.
trucks come in, stop at the office, they check the truck. Leaves will be dumped in this area here. That
Okay.
would be the leaves windrows. All the material processing would be over on this side here, on the other side of the gas pipeline. That's where the materials will be stockpiled. Obviously, when one truck is, tree limbs come in, they don't make mulch. They wait until the pile gets up to
Sure.
a couple thousand yards, then they set it up, their machine to make mulch. Once the mulch is made, there'll be some temporary stockpiles here, but once it's ready to be sold, it'll come back out and go into the bins. And then when people either load up from an empty truck coming out, or you come in with your truck, want to buy mulch, stop at the office, you come over, and they load you from the bins.
Okay. So you don't really come past those parallel, I don't know, 25
These here.
bin instructions right there. That's as far as a contractor or a person who was going to purchase comes into the property.
Correct. Now, what we're showing here is leaves probably at the end of December, when all the leaves are brought in.
Okay.
They put them in the windrows, and come this time of year, piles are consolidated, and you may actually get a point in time that there's no leaves stockpiled there at all. It's open, very similar to the operation now. So in the fall, after all the leaves are picked up, they're stockpiled. They turn them over on a regular basis, and after 6 months, 8 months, it's reduced in less than 50%. They mix some of the mulch from the leaves with topsoil, and they manufacture topsoil, or they may mix some of the mulch from the leaves with the grindings of the wood chips from the logs, stumps, and brush.
Okay. So I have a good understanding of the leaf production. Thank you. So what about the topsoil? Where's all that work done?
Topsoil will, all
On the other side of the
processing will
Iroquois.
be done on the other side.
On the other side of the Iroquois pipeline.
Correct.
Okay. And then the pavers and the stone and the stuff like that, that's on the bins that are, yep, right?
Either bin, depending on how much product is being used.
Okay. Now, just understanding the traffic patterns, once again, so the pavers and the stuff like that, once again, that's commercial business only, or someone can come in there if they wanted to buy their own patio, just understanding what type of people are going to be coming in there? Can you talk to that?
You,
Could be anybody?
you could, but
anybody.
unless you have a truck large enough
Yeah.
to hold, if you go in with your car or your SUV, you could probably pick up 50 paver blocks.
Right.
You're
So
not
if
going
I
to pave
wanted
your whole
to-
backyard with that.
Right. So if I wanted to rent a truck at Home Depot and go and I can do that, I don't have to be a contractor is where I'm going to be able to purchase. Okay.
Or you work out with Grillos and they deliver for you.
Okay. And the pavers, they're delivered already in the position to be sold, or are you manufacturing them on site?
No manufacturing of pavers
They're
on
right
site.
there, boom, they're ready for production, off they go.
Right. They're just a retailer of the pavers.
Okay? Grass clipping. You said the highest structure is the storage facility, which is the 30 feet high?
I believe it's 25.5 feet high, actually.
Okay, 25.5, thank you.
25 feet, 5 inches.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, he's going to
Okay.
check that now, make sure that I didn't make a mistake when I
Good,
calculated.
I appreciate that.
The house was 23 feet, 10 and a half inches.
Okay. 10.5 inches. Interesting. I had one other thing, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to go back to the acreage again, just to make sure that I understand it. So your research says that if we take all the conservation within the lot and then account for the setbacks, if we were to follow that letter of the law and account for the Iroquois pathway, that we would only have about 2.5 acres out of the 57 that are truly developable.
Correct, in that area.
Bring that yellow up for me again, if you don't mind. Thanks.
It would be
Yep, yellow inside of that section, right?
that area there and this area.
Okay.
A little bit there, but it's very small.
All the way over there. The material receiving area, which is on the disconnected yellow segment on the top. Yeah, nope, I'm going over actually. Follow, yes, sir, that area right there. So does that material receiving area fit perfectly in that yellow section?
This area is not a receiving area.
That's not.
It's not.
Okay. So I'm looking at that thing. So it's that. Okay. Huh.
Receiving area is over here.
Maybe I have a little bit different drawing. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to
If you don't mind,
orient.
I can look at the drawing you're looking at and see what do you see.
Would you mind?
Sure.
You guys all have the same drawing I do, right? Okay. So this is what I'm looking at, sir. So are we saying that that's not in that yellow?
That's in the yellow.
That's in the yellow area.
That one you're looking way over to.
That's over here. This is a blow-up.
Right, so it's way over there. Okay, so there's nothing being built in those two, nothing being considered in those two discontinuous yellow areas, right? That's in the main yellow area. Okay.
Yeah,
All
the
right.
area you pointed to me on your map
Yep,
is right here.
is right there. Okay, cool. All right, I'm good. Thank you.
Any other questions for these gentlemen?
I just have one. Is there an odor effect to all this mulch and all this recycling? Does it give off an odor of any kind that should be any concern regarding?
For the record, Lawrence Grillo, Vice President, Grillo Services, Grillo Organic. Answering the question, when we do turn leaves, we turn them about 30 to 40 days on annual, monthly. Initially, when you do turn, there is an odor that comes off, and it dissipates within a few hours, the odors of the leaves. And I did address some concerns earlier with folks, Gloria comments about this, and I said, well, one way we could look to keep that in mind, which way the wind is blowing, is to put up a windsock and see if the wind is actually blowing towards your residences. We don't have to turn. If it's blowing in the opposite way towards 95 or towards Big Drive where there's no residences in between, then we can turn. So there is a way for us to control that. But the odor does dissipate after we turn in a few hours.
Frankly, I mean, where your site is now, you don't have that issue because there's nothing around you to have.
When you turn, there will always be a little bit of odor when you do turn, and then it dissipates. To give you an idea, the DEP was down at my site today. They found no odor problems whatsoever. But if you were turning at the exact time you would come down, would you find might a little odor? If the wind's blowing in your face, there might be an odor, yes. But the concerns for neighbors, which I understand it, and what I would do is put up a windsock and say, okay, the wind's blowing directly towards the neighbors today. Let's not turn today, and we'll wait till the wind's in a different position. It's totally controllable.
Thank you. Ms. Eggleston?
I just had one question regarding where is the closest residential home to this plan? I couldn't really tell from the drawing.
Do you want the other plan? Yeah.
closest residential home is over in this area here. Across the street from the site, well, not directly across from our driveway, a little bit to the east is the Milford pump station. Gloria Commons is on the other side of the pump station.
Distance to the operation?
Distance to the leaf mulch to Gloria Common is in excess of 700 feet.
700 is what you said?
Yes, in excess of 700 feet. I don't know the exact number.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
the applicant should address the legal hardship for the variance request.
I thought I did. The legal hardship relates to the nature of the site, and under your regulations, as I stated them before, special conditions or circumstances arising from the land peculiar to this land. This land is peculiar. It's 57.36 acres that if you take out the restricted areas, the wetlands, the floodplain, and the pipeline, which can't be built upon, you're left with very little land, and the question is whether, under your regulations, whether you can reasonably develop that property without relief. And I believe that is in fact the case here because of the setback requirement, which essentially uses up the entire balance of the usable property.
Thank you. Any other questions? I do. And Mr. Vizino.
To go back to the difference between the 2.5 acres, which is usable, and the 7 or so that it sounds like you're asking with the variances. So couldn't you just build a smaller recycling center and just use the 2.5 acres?
No.
Okay, why not?
You couldn't do it. I'm going to let my client answer that. He's probably better suited.
Sure.
Hi, Michael Grillo again. Because you have a certain output per acre, when you're figuring cost of property, how much material you can make on per acre, and if we had a 2.5 acre site that we paid, for example, $2.6 million for, the numbers don't work. There's no way at all that you could possibly ever produce enough on 2.5 acres to pay for that property. And that's why. That's where the hardship comes in.
It won't be cost effective.
Cost effective, right. It's not cost effective at all, by any means.
Have any other sites been considered for this operation?
We want to stay in Milford, and we have not been able to find another site suitable in Milford for what we do. This site is... It's not going to replace Oronoke Road, because Oronoke Road is an 18-acre site. But what we'll do is give us the ability to stay in Milford in the future. And yes, it's a smaller site, but we still will be able to have our base here and then grow out from here with larger sites, maybe farms, which I don't think we'll find in Milford, but down the road, down more towards Guilford, towards North Haven that way, and transport material back and forth and do larger scale manufacturing on the farm and have this serve as more of a smaller retail type area. But we do need the 7.5 acres to function on the property, or it's just not functionable at all.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Anyone else speaking in favor of this application?
If I can,
go ahead. You're still up.
Very, very briefly, thank you. The question, the issue is really practical difficulty or unusual hardship. And I think when you're talking about over a 57-acre parcel of land that's restricted to 2 small pieces over a pipeline, then you have a practical difficulty or unusual hardship. Just a couple of brief thoughts to conclude. In relation to what can be done on this site, again, as I indicated, the height or allowed height in this zone under 3.6.4.4, 3 of your regulations is 60 feet. And as we said, we have 25-foot height on the Quonset hut and the house, which is a house. I mean, if you look at the elevations, you can see it looks like a house. It's an office. The inside floor plan's an office, but you're basically building a residential structure on this site. It's 23 feet, which is the height of a residential structure. The floor area ratio under 3.6.4.4 of the regulations is 0.35. For this 57.36 acre site, that means that under the regulations, you would be allowed to build 20.076 acres or 874,510 square feet of office floor area on this site. What is the gross floor area which is proposed is 6,200 square feet or 0.0025 floor area ratio. When you're talking about reasonable use of the property, I think this is really, really a reasonable use of this site. And I thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor of this application? Okay. Anyone here opposed? Okay. All right. We're going to keep this. We're going to keep this orderly, if you would. Approach us one at a time. Please state your name, your address, and please keep your comments to about 3 minutes. And try not to be repetitive of the person that was before you.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Wilson. I live at 663 West Avenue. West Avenue is basically right now a residential neighborhood with some light industry. This particular facility, the odor, the dust, the noise of the facility will be minor nuisances, but the truck traffic is going to present a significant safety hazard. West Avenue is a 20-mile-an-hour, 2-lane little road with a 90-degree turn at the end. Large vehicles like SUVs have difficulty negotiating this. I just cannot see this decimating our neighborhood, our sleepy little neighborhood with this truck traffic. Children are going to have a problem. This is going to be within half a mile of John F. Kennedy School. Kids are not going to be able to ride their bikes in that area safely. People will not be able to walk safely. It's going to decimate the value of our homes, the homes that we went in there with. And you can't tell me that you would want to buy a home that's within the vicinity like this, with this kind of truck traffic. Please do not allow this variance. Thank you.
Hold on for a minute. You passed this, you didn't explain what this was about.
I'm sorry. I actually am speaking for the 50 signatories of this that do not want to see you grant this variance. They do not want to have this facility in the neighborhood. They understand that this is just too industrial a facility for this residential neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please come up, sir. Whoever, anyone wanting to speak, please come up. You can form a line if you'd like.
My name is Reinhold Luther, and I reside at 1433 Naugatuck Avenue, which is right next to Grinnell Road. There's a four-way stop sign at Grinnell Road and Naugatuck Avenue, and I'm right there. I don't have a formal presentation, but I have some information here that will help you follow what I'm going to say. Can I bring this up?
Give me 1 second
Okay.
while I distribute yours.
Middle, okay.
All right, go ahead, sir. You have quite a bit of information here, so
Okay.
do your best to
It will
summarize
be
it.
very short, believe me. The first item I have is a picture of a traffic sign, and I'll read it for the benefit of the audience. No through traffic, commercial vehicles in excess of 8,000 pounds prohibited. Per city, Milford City Ordinance, section, it's too dark, 1442 and section 14298, I believe, as per SDC. Violators subject to $100 fine. Through traffic, use alternate routes, Connecticut Turnpike, I-95, and Big Drive. This sign is located at the southern exit Route 36 at Plains Road.
Please try and talk into that microphone if you would. Just move the microphone. The microphone. Try and talk into that so we can hear you a little bit better.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Is that better? This sign notwithstanding, heavy trucks are using Plains Road and subsequently Naugatuck Avenue as an extension to reach the industrial area on Oronoque Road. There's the power plant, there's the Soil Now, there's Beard Concrete and Bix, et cetera, et cetera. On May 2nd, in 2011, I did a little count of heavy trucks traversing this particular route. And in 2 hours, I counted 34 heavy trucks, primarily Soil Now. I'll just read off a few. 8:30 a.m. Soil Now going west, 8:31 oil tanker, 8:42 Soil Now going west, 8:42 Beard Concrete, 8:52 dump truck with soil, 8:52 sewage tank, 9 dump truck soil, et cetera, et cetera. Predominantly heavy trucks loaded with soil going to the Soil Now operation. Now, as I mentioned before, there's a stop sign at the intersection of Grinnell and Naugatuck Avenues. And when these trucks, well, they never come to a full stop. They just come to a rolling stop. But when they have to shift, gear up to get faster, the noise is unbelievable. We had to give up the use of our outdoor deck for entertaining purposes because we couldn't stand the noise. I took the information that I just read off to the police department and asked them to investigate. I had a call from the investigating officer, and he explained that Big Road was being repaved, and therefore a lot of traffic is coming through the area, and as soon as the paving is completed, it will subside. Well, he was partially correct because the traffic did slow down. There were fewer cars, but there's still plenty. Last Friday, I took another little survey, and that's on the other sheet. And this case, I have 725 travel direction west soil truck, 743 soil truck, 750 soil truck, 805 west soil truck, 812 east soil truck, 825 east soil truck, 824 west heavy equipment, 830 west flatbed trailer, 841 west soil truck, 855 west soil truck, 925 west soil truck, 935 west industrial crane, etc. In 2.5 hours, I counted 16, well, I guess it's 17 trucks. So in a 10-hour day, that would amount to times 5, 80 trucks. Believe me, it's unbearable.
I'm going to have to ask you to summarize, please.
Paper?
I'm going to have to ask you to summarize, please.
Yeah, just one more thing, just very quickly. I have a sketch here that shows the possibilities of getting to the site. In yellow is the Pleasant route that leads up to Orinoco Avenue. Purple is traffic coming from the south or north, and they both have to get on Route 1 and get into the site on West Street. However, both those routes entail an awful lot of traffic on Route 1 and 4 traffic lights each way, no matter what direction. The orange would be taking exit 35 Big Road, going up to West Street, and then past the school down to the proposed site. And that's impractical because of the heavy school bus and traffic and parents dropping off children, children walking to school. So in no time, the truck drivers will figure out that the easiest and the best way to go is the yellow route, which adds to the already heavy traffic on Plains Road and Naugatuck Avenue. Not only that, but that traffic is prohibited. So this is my presentation. As a former commissioner of zoning boards of appeals for the city of New Britain, I'm fully familiar with the difficult and important tasks you have to perform, but as a resident of Milford, I urge you to deny the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Ramsey. I live at 448 West Ave, and my biggest concern is
Can you repeat your name, please?
Stephanie Ramsey, R-A-M-S-E-Y. And
Thank
again,
you.
I live at 448 West Ave, which is just right down the road from where the proposed site is. My biggest concern is going to be, I think it's approximately 15 cement structures. Can I just show you? Great if we can just keep those at the 200 feet. That's under 3.6.4.2, that minimum yard and open space, where we're supposed to have 200 feet in the front, also on the side, and then the rear. My biggest concern is what's being held in those structures. Grillo Organic, that term organic, we're unsure if those grass clippings that are coming in, if they have pesticides, herbicides, insecticides on them. I don't know that terminology that's being used. Organic really means organic matter. Organic matter contains nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, 3 major nutrients that in excess, which they will be because they'll be in all of those holding containers, during a heavy rainstorm, just like we had today, can actually run off into that, and I'll quote the terms that were used, environmentally sound, environmentally sensitive area. And it can actually run off into the wetlands. Now you have excess nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. That is the result, or can result to eutrophication, which creates a dead zone in that wetlands. So again, it's all about what's really those structures right along West Ave and what they're holding. There was a comment, I didn't know we were going to talk about air pollution, but there was a comment before about turning over the organic matter in those structures, and that the DEEP was out there today. I don't know if they tested for VOCs, but a lot of times from the decomposition of organic matter, VOCs are given off, volatile organic compounds, which don't really lead to odor, but they're given off, so as neighbors, we won't smell them, but they'll just be in the air. You can't see them. And so when those VOCs, when those combine with nitrous oxides, which are given off by all of our vehicles, especially the dump trucks, it creates photochemical smog or photochemical oxidants, which is ground level air pollution. And that'll settle right in our neighborhood. So I just wanted to add that because I didn't know we were going to talk about air pollution. The other thing about the structures as well is that we're going to have those big trucks backing up right along those structures. And again, if it's allowed to be at that 15 feet mark, what's going to happen to the soil is that the soil is going to start to compact down underneath those heavy trucks. We're going to close off pore space and basically create a clay-like soil right along the roadside. Clay has very small pore spaces, just like compact soil, so water can't infiltrate, so we're going to see a decrease in groundwater recharge. And you're going to completely change the underlying groundwater, and that groundwater is what flows into that wetlands. So you're going to completely change that wetlands and that ecological system by changing and compacting that topsoil. Let me just show you. And compacting that topsoil is basically taking a soil that's there now and basically replacing it with clay. So what you're also going to do is not only change the groundwater recharge, the groundwater, it flows into the wetlands, you're also going to increase runoff. It's basically like laying down concrete or impermeable surface. I mean, we've all seen clay. When water falls on clay, you know, it barely can trickle through, and during a heavy rainstorm, just like we had today, if that's 15 feet away from the road, where's it gonna go? Well, it's gonna go downward towards our road, right in our neighborhood. And then we're gonna be susceptible to accidents, road damage. We know in the winters, the asphalt, it gets loose. And there's already an issue there by the pumping station. I think there was just a pothole that they filled in, but this winter, all of that runoff was puddling up. So there was already an issue this past spring with the snow melt right out by that pumping station. The gravel, the road was turning up. So those are just really my three main points. Again, I just ask you guys to please reconsider, and if these structures do have to go in 200 feet back, please push them back. We have that standard in place. I understand business and the environment, they have to get along together. If there's a decision to be made, hold strong, push them back, save a neighborhood. Thank you.
I have a stopwatch, so I'll watch my time. My name is Joseph Bogdan, and my address is 3 Audubon Close in Milford. I've resided at that address for the past 24 years. I'm speaking in opposition to the variance which would allow Grillo Industries to set up a recycling operation on West Avenue. This is not suitable use for the land and surrounding area. The application stating no other use for the land, in my opinion, doesn't show a hardship. The Kingdom Life was going to build a cathedral on the property, and I'm sure a much more suitable use for the property can be found without destroying the environment in a former watershed area. Grillo is a heavy industrial operation and not suited to be mixed with residential, school, and a light industrial area. The nature of the business, composting and decaying materials, odors are given off. Depending on the wind direction, like today and yesterday, it happened to be out of the southeast. It would take it right over the area where I live, as well as other residential properties. I'm certain it would have a negative effect on property values in the area for us residents. The second major concern is the heavy truck traffic. I was a Milford police officer for 25 years. 20 of those years were in the traffic division. As anyone knows who lives on Naugatuck Avenue between Bick Drive and Plains Road, and on Plains Road from Naugatuck Avenue to I-95, they can certainly tell you Grillo is not a good neighbor. Despite the section from I-95 to Naugatuck Avenue being clearly posted for no-through truck traffic, Grillo trucks violate this daily. My condo is directly on Naugatuck Avenue, and I see the parade of heavy dump trucks begin as early as 6:30 a.m. and continue on and off all day long. Certain times of the year, there's a lot more truck traffic than other times. Like summertime, it dwindles down. Springtime and fall, it's very busy. It's not just Grillo's trucks, but it's other large, heavy dump trucks bringing product into Grillo, as they have contracts with numerous municipalities and other businesses that they dump their property to. It is noisy, it is disruptive, it scares my pets, and also the fumes can linger from the trucks for a while. The posted truck route is Bick Drive to I-95, but I suspect Grillo and other drivers circumvent this because they avoid a couple traffic lights and they can make the right turns on red coming off 95 where they'd be stopped on Bick Drive. I know the police department has received complaints over the years and has spoken to not just Grillo but the other heavy industrial operators down there about using the posted truck route. It works for about 2 weeks, then it goes back to just the way it was. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was walking at the corner in Naugatuck and Grinnell. I witnessed a Grillo truck go right through the stop sign without ever touching the brakes or downshifting, probably traveling 20 to 25 miles an hour, which is the speed limit. I thought it'd be a decent guy. Instead of contacting the cops, I called Grillo, asked for a supervisor or an owner. I did not get the person's name who came on the phone. I told them what happened. I got a 2-word profane response, and the phone slammed down in my ear. A year and a half ago, I witnessed a Grillo truck go through a red light at Bick and Naugatuck. I again called up. This time, I asked for an owner or supervisor again, got someone on the phone who listened and said they would take care of the problem. West Avenue is not suitable for this type of truck traffic. Heading towards Route 1, you have a 90-degree curve just off of Route 1 as well as a steep grade. The westbound, from the site westbound on West Avenue, you have JFK Elementary School, which is very active morning and afternoon. Many students walk along West Ave, and to mix numerous large trucks and school children is kind of a recipe for disaster. Grinnell Street, which could be an option if their drivers decide to cut through, is a residential street with a steep grade, poor sight lines, and is narrow at the top. Based on what I see daily, I imagine the trucks going to and from Grillo and the other all the heavy trucks would shortcut this to avoid lights and school traffic. My final comment is regarding our neighbors at Gloria Commons. Gloria Commons was built after a zoning change was obtained. The area had been zoned for commercial or light industrial. The zoning change to residential was made and Gloria Commons was built. It's the duty of this board and the city to protect those residents after the city created a residential area within a light industrial or commercial zone. A heavy industry like Grillo does not fit in this area. I urge you to reject the proposal or the variance, and I thank you very much for your time. I have a copy of my remarks that's signed.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is James Trowbridge. I'm a resident of 18 Audubon Close in Milford, and I also represent the Audubon Manor Condominium Association tonight. We have filed a petition signed by 72 residents or owners of the association with your clerk at Parsons. And also I filed a copy of the statement also at Parsons this afternoon. So this application, which is brought by Grillo but in the name of Kingdom Life, advances one of the most improbable proposals that is impossible to imagine, creating a heavy industrial use in what has been a residential and conservation area. Of course, the existing zoning regulations prohibit the proposed use, and I understand that's not before you. That's before the Planning and Zoning Commission. But Milford has a salutary plan which confines industrial uses to the Housatonic corridor along Roanoke Road. The hardship variance that the church seeks is necessary, in its view, to allow heavy truck traffic to leave the property by West Avenue. Nothing less will do. Nothing less than an intensive industrial use is proposed. When it acquired the property, the church announced it was seeking to build a new church on the property. There seemed to be no hardship on that occasion. There was a use for the property. I think the use still is a possibility, although Grillo is certainly not in the church business. The church acquired the property, and presumably Grillo, under its contract, has its eyes wide open and knowledge of the applicable zoning regulations and restrictions. Grillo states in its application that there is no other practical use of this property. Well, certainly the church thought there was a practical use of the property. Grillo's desire to maximize its profit by having a larger operation than the 2.5 acres allows is a financial motive. And the Connecticut Supreme Court has said a financial motive alone, the desire to make the most money you can from property, it will never be a hardship, because that kind of hardship would eat every zoning regulation that there is. Obviously, the zoning regulation imposes some restrictions on people's desires to make the maximum amount of money they can from a parcel, but that's not a hardship. Now, if you look at Google Earth, and you look at the operation, the existing operation on Orono, you will discover that it's massive. And among the other things that they store there is apparently tree trunks and damaged trees from the last 4 or 5 winter storms. It's a huge fuel pile down there. Nothing less as intensive is planned for West Avenue. Perhaps the space allowed won't be as much as the space they have on Orono. But nonetheless, the plan, it contains 13 long windrows of decaying material, soil, open material, 15 25 by 25 concrete bins for the storage of material, open storage of material processing areas, truck parking, retail operation, and as you've heard, a storage building. Now, persons traveling into Milford on I-95 from the west, we're going to see a very grim view of the operation, combining, I think, the worst features of a junkyard and a strip mine. All the trees will be clear-cut. It is inevitable that this view will create an unfavorable impression of Milford. The effect on the neighborhood will be profound. Heavy truck traffic, in my observation, starting as early as 6:48 a.m. in the morning. That was on Monday morning. And we now know it's 6 days a week, not merely 5. It will continue most of the day. If the trucks use West Avenue to reach I-95 by exit 35, driving west over towards Bick Drive, They'll pass by the Kennedy School with school buses, parental pickup and drop-up traffic, school children walking along West Road, not only to and from school, but to the very active playgrounds just to the west of the school. The noise from heavy trucks and odors from the operation will plague people in Gloria Commons and the neighborhood as it does at Caswell Cove. The people in Caswell Cove certainly have noticed the smell from this operation. The proposal is so out of character with the area that it's bound to have a negative effect on property values. Residents have some expectation that planning and zoning schemes will be generally maintained over time and that radical carve-outs and spot zoning will not occur.
Sir,
Milford neighborhoods seem to be under...
I'm going to have to ask you to kind of summarize, if you would, please.
Excuse me?
I'd like you to try and summarize.
Yes,
there's a lot of people
30
following
seconds.
you. Yeah.
30 seconds, sir. Milford neighborhoods seem to be under assault, unlike some projects before the zoning board, where state law may favor some applications. Here, the applicant bears the burden. Establishing hardship is not a mere matter of rhetoric. The parcel may be accessed to Schoolhouse Road. Maybe 7 acres is available for use. 2.5 acres is available for use. The application of the 185 and 190-foot variance should be denied under your section 9223 as injurious to the neighborhood, detrimental to the welfare of the public, and not in harmony with Milford's existing approach to zoning. Thank you. Any
Thank
questions?
you. Thank you. Okay. Again, when you're speaking, please do not be repetitive of, we've heard a lot about the truck traffic and...
Chris Sweetwood, that's Sweetwood at 12 Manor House Lane. That's over in Audubon Manor. We're kind of around the corner. There's a reason the area hasn't been developed. It's not developable. It's wetlands. It's open space. It's a buffer. In fact, 3 or 4 years ago, unfortunately, it was a scene of a large fire. The problem we currently have, obviously, is a lot of traffic that goes back into that area presently on Naugatuck. It's supposed to be using Beck. And what's going to end up happening is that traffic will be diverted down Grinnell, an area that's just not appropriate. The smell, the noise, and the final question is, would you want this 700 feet from your house? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking?
Can I just say one more thing?
I can't let you comment right now. You have other people coming up behind you.
Hi, I'm Pat O'Brien, 80 Audubon Close, and I'd like to speak to you a little bit about the other side of this. I, for many years, was a co-owner of a landscape and tree company who utilized Grillo's services to many degrees, and I think they sort of downplayed as far as what the operation consists of. They talked about just leaves and grass clippings. Well, owning a tree company, there was a lot of heavy wood we dumped there, and we were one company. I had many days from starting in March until November, December, where my guys would be dumping hardwood, chips, etc. there 3 to 4 times a day. And that could be anywhere from 5 to 6 days a week. And that's just one company. And as far as the woman brought up the grass clippings, of course, I mean, people have their lawns fertilized, different companies do that. Those grass clippings are going to have chemicals on them. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
How you doing? My name is Anthony San Marco. I just purchased a unit at the Gloria Commons. 2 things I just want to say. I didn't hear of any type of waiting area for these vehicles. I don't want to go back to that, but in case they have a busy day, and because West Ave is very small, and with the the angle of the turn there. I didn't hear of any type of waiting area for these vehicles, and I don't know whether they're going to be idling all day. And another thing, too, I don't happen to be an expert on this type of material. I didn't hear of any type of fire protection plan. The pipeline was mentioned, the gas pipeline. Now, I've only been here a month, so I guess the Iroquois pipeline runs through that property. I was just wondering, with all this material coming in, is any of it combustible? And it probably is the way everybody's talking about it. And God forbid there is a leak or some type of concern. I mean, I'm sure they maintain that pipeline well, but God forbid there is a leak, and if that material is combustible or spark, I mean, that's considering you got the school and the residents. So I just wanted to make a comment on that.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead. You were next.
Hi, my name is Shirley Lido. I live at 11 Sharon Court, Milford. I've lived in my house. It's right almost on the post road. I have been there since 1968, and I have watched what I would like to call the devastation of that neighborhood over the years. A lot of changes, most of them not for the best, but I will say I don't know if the neighborhood can sustain anymore. I have lived in this. I can't even get out of my street anymore. It's to the point where sometimes there's that new light the past couple years. I watch it change, I watch it change. I cannot get out of my street. The traffic is horrible. The trucks are just, I know you don't want to keep hearing this, but I am afraid for my property. I am afraid that my taxes are not going down, but all this stuff is going on, and my house is going down. That's what's happening. I think my property value is going down. I can't leave my street. The trucks. I happen to, and I actually don't really have a lot of problem with Grillo. I mean, organic. I'm not a chemist, a scientist, whatever. But I do see these trucks all the time going up and down, and they're very loud. They're loud. They have an odor, and I just don't know how much more. I'm actually begging you. I mean, I just don't know. I'm speaking for the rest. We're begging you, please. This is just. Would you want to live here? You wouldn't. Trust me. You just would. I have a used car dealership in the back. I have stadium lights in my backyard shining all the time. I have come here and fought before to no avail. This time it's just enough's enough. I'm just begging you, please. Just consider what all these very intelligent and articulate people have said. I wish I could speak as eloquently as some of them, but I'm just saying, please, begging you, please, just consider that this is just not in the best interest of this neighborhood.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone else speaking in opposition? Anyone else speaking in opposition? Go ahead, I'll let you make your one more comment. Go ahead. Go ahead. And identify yourself again, please.
Jerry Wilson. I live at 663 West Avenue. I just want to say that in reference to fire, I know this hasn't been discussed much, but recycling facilities are no stranger to fires. The fact that the gas pipeline is there, that's one issue. But I have to say, one fire and we're going to lose the entire park. And the last fire, my building caught fire. So please, reconsider this. Do not let them have a variance. This is not the right location. Not the right location at all. Thank you again.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else speaking in opposition? Go ahead.
My name is Lynn LaRocque. I'm a new resident to Milford. I'm at Gloria Commons.
We have your actual street address, if you would.
Excuse me?
Your actual street address.
22 Lucius Court, Gloria Commons. I actually liked that little park area when I came looking for condos. I thought it was peaceful. It was open for about a month or two before there was a fire. I took my granddaughter through there. It was very peaceful. We have to deal with the odor from the sewage plant that's right at the end of our complex, which I was not aware of when we purchased. I certainly don't want more odor from a mulching company. I oppose. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name's Ed Salento, 16 Manor House Lane, Audubon Close condominiums. Everyone's talked about traffic as it exists today, and we heard about a cost analysis projection, but I think we need to be talking about there are additional traffic that's going to come through that area that we haven't talked about. And I think that's an important case of what's going to happen. And in all due respect to the presenters, you cannot dictate a method of how trucks are going to show up to this. They're not all going to take West Avenue. They're going to come into many different areas, including Grinnell, which already has a problem of being maintained properly. And I just reiterate what everyone has said before me. You need to reconsider or to consider that this is not the proper thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else speaking in opposition? Okay, last call. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Stone, you may rebut.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to minimize anybody's concerns. I think a lot of them are very legitimate. Certainly traffic is always a legitimate issue. And that seems to be the primary issue. But again, we have a traffic study that shows no impact. But the appropriate forum for that is not this board, it's the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the appropriate forum for all of these issues, and a lot of them is a bunch of speculation, is the Planning and Zoning Commission. And we're going to have our job cut out for us before the Planning and Zoning Commission. There's no question about that. But I didn't hear one bit of testimony that affects what we said about the hardship on this particular site. Now, we heard about we could have a church there. You don't have a church there. We don't know why, but we don't know why. Maybe because they had a development problem on this site. We heard that said that they could put a church and they didn't need to come for anything, but we never saw any applications filed for that church. They may very well have had a problem. As far as the environmental issues, the Inland Wetlands Agency, Watercourse Agency is the appropriate forum. We have been to the Inland Wetlands Agency. We've had a full public hearing before the Inland Wetlands Agency, and the Inland Wetlands Agency, which is charged with protecting those wetlands and watercourses, has approved this project on this site. So I don't know if you were aware of that, but that has been part of the process, and that was actually the first place we went. We have federal applications with respect to the floodplains, so there's been significant environmental concern with respect to that. The pipeline is fully cognizant of our plans, have dictated what the crossings have to be like over that pipeline, and have no problem as long as we comply with those crossing requirements with respect to these plans. Other than that, I just think it's, property values, it's all speculation. And, the law is pretty clear that speculative harm is not a proper basis for decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission, but it really relates to those issues, and we're prepared to address those issues. But I was going to come here and make a traffic presentation to this board. I don't think it's appropriate, and I don't think it's appropriate for your consideration. With that, I'm going to see if anything to address. I believe my client would like to address a couple issues, so I'm going to ask him to come up. Thank you.
Hi, Michael Grillo here again. I'd like to address a few of the comments that were brought up this evening. With all due respect, the third applicant 448 West Avenue, was speaking about the wetlands and how we're going to compact the soil on the site with our machinery. Well, she was worried about the clay compaction. Well, I've been studying soils for the last 23 years, and to find a high clay content soil in Connecticut is almost you need a miracle from God. I haven't been able to find most of my soils that I study with a clay content more than 6 to 8%, and in this region. And every now and then I'll find some soil with a clay content of 18%. It's very hard to find a high clay content in our region here in Connecticut. I dug 19 test holes on the site, all sand and gravel, no clay. Another issue, I was down in the low point of the site. One of my test holes was 5.5 feet before we hit water, and that was in the lowest part of the site. So it's all sand and gravel, and it drains very well. Right now, the wetlands aren't even functioning. That's why you had the fire there 4 to 5 years ago. Phragmites are growing out of control, trees down everywhere. The Beaver Brook is not flowing because it has trees down everywhere from Hurricane Sandy and Irene. Those need to be taken out of there. That whole shoreline needs to be cleaned up to get that flowing again. There's a pond down near Schoolhouse Road there that we're going to muck out, plant thousands of wetland plants to get that wetland functioning again, because right now it's nothing but a bacteria breeding ground, where if they're so concerned about health, some of these people, if their children went down there and actually walked through that water, they could become very ill, which was a testimony by a prominent wetland scientist that studied the site for us. So it's important that we clean that up. We are going to clean that up. We have a $300,000 landscape plan for this site. This site is not a virgin site. It was mined out to create I-95. They planted pine trees, but if you could tell what they did, they planted them all in an exact row, and everybody knows that plants don't grow that way. And that's about the only really beautiful part of the site. The rest of it is overgrown, and it really needs help. What we're going to do is actually improve the wetlands and improve the whole site. As far as fire goes in the pipeline, before we even got going with this project, we contacted Iroquois Pipeline. They had us dig down to the front of the pipe, up near the front of the property near I-95. We dug down 12 feet until we hit the pipe. Pipe is encased in concrete, and then it's half-inch steel. And then we went to the back part of the property, and we dug down 19 feet until we hit the pipe. Same thing, encased in concrete and half-inch steel. So we're not going to be actively operating on the pipeline. We're going to be fencing it off, and we're going to have 2 areas that we could cross it, and those areas are going to be paved. So that shouldn't be an issue. Another issue is somebody spoke about fire apparatus. We are going to have fire hydrants on the site. We're pulling a main right in from West Ave. So if that had become an issue, we have an apparatus there to fight that. Basically, the other issue I had was what Stephanie brought up about VOCs. There's been no proof of VOCs from leaf composting getting in the air. Matter of fact, there's 2 things basically that help take all the carbon out of the atmosphere. One is the oceans, which are being taxed and they can't take any anymore, and the other is composting. Composting is going to be a vital part of our future. It's going to be a huge resource to take the carbon out of the atmosphere, and what we're doing is very, very helpful to the environment and people. You need better soil to grow better foods. Compost holds 5 times its weight in water, so when you're irrigating fields, 90% of the water that you're spraying on the field is getting evaporated. When you have compost and you mix that into those fields, you guess what? It holds 5 times its weight in water. You're using 1/10 of the water to irrigate the same cropland. So when people look at our company and say, "Well, it doesn't really look so organic," it is organic. It's a huge part of our future, and it's what we need to do to help save the planet. So let me see what else I want to touch on. The traffic, the attorney Brian Stone touched on that, and that's about all I have to say. But I understand people's concern, and I'm sorry to hear that some people think we're not a good neighbor. We've always tried to be a good neighbor to the community and everybody. And we will try to continue to do that. And the reason we want this site is because we lease our site where we are now. We haven't been able to find another site in Milford. And this site, like I said, is not going to replace Oronoque Road. It's going to be a smaller retail site. When you look at Oronoque Road, people look at it and say, well, it's a mammoth. And it's an 18-acre site. This is a 7-acre site. There's only so much you could do on this site. It's not going to replace it. It's going to just give us a base in Milford. So I don't want people to think that it's going to be this mammoth, huge site like Oronoque Road. It's impossible. We don't have the real estate there to do it. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, any questions for Mr. Grillo or Mr. Stone? You have your hand up back there, but we can't take your questions.
No, I want to speak on the Vice President.
No, not you, sir.
Oh.
Someone in back is raising their hand. Can you stand up? We can't see who you're talking. What did you want to say? What do you want? Did you want to know your name? Please come up. Please come up.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Ramsey. I was mentioned before, I live at 448 West Ave. There was mentioning that I had said that there's clay-like material in that area, and that's not what I said. There was a misunderstanding. What I had said is that while the big trucks what they're going to do is under whatever soil type, I'm not familiar with the soil type, it could be sandy loam, it can be loam soil, whatever soil's there now, what's going to happen is underneath the weight of those trucks, those big dump trucks, is that the particles are going to condense together underneath that pressure and that weight. And what's going to happen to the soil is that the properties of that soil will be similar. It's not going to magically turn into clay overnight. It will be similar, meaning there will be a reduction in pore size, so then that's going to decrease infiltration rate. There was another comment made about VOCs. Decomposition of organic matter does release VOCs. It's not speculation. And then again, with the nitrous oxides, that combination, nitrous oxides are given off from any vehicle, truck, or car, and those two together with the addition of sunlight will make photochemical oxidants or photochemical smog. I just think there was a misunderstanding.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
For the record again, Lawrence Grillo, Vice President, Grillo Services. Stephanie had stated that the 15 structure we were talking about for variance were along West Avenue. I want to correct that again. They're along the state of Connecticut property. They are nowhere along West Avenue, the 15 structures. Another thing Stephanie is talking about is the construction and compaction. Some of our bins we actually pave with asphalt. So there will not be, we'll put down a process and then it won't be any more compaction. And at that point you have what they call a sheet flow runoff into the windrows. And like my brother stated, the windrows themselves hold 5 times their weight in water. Wood chips hold water. She's talked about all this water, like it would build up and overflow to wetlands. Actually, most of the organic materials hold water. So what's going to happen is we have an adding absorption to that area. And I think that's important to recognize also. That's what I want to say.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for these gentlemen? Okay. None? Okay, this hearing's closed. Go ahead. No? We're done. Okay, this hearing's closed. Okay, your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we're looking at the variance for the property. I mean, we've heard all the other reasons why. And go ahead.
Oh, okay. Just a couple comments. I'm not sure putting this industry and fitting it into this small parcel of land is a reasonable use, given the intrusiveness it has to the neighborhood. But with that said, I mean, our issue is whether or not there's a hardship. And, you know, the wetlands came with the land. They were there a long time ago, and the land was purchased with those wetlands on it with the knowledge that there are limitations to it. So I just don't see the hardship there. I have to believe there's a use for this property that that could be more compliant with what this, with the size of the lot. I'm sorry,
Here, speak right
my
now.
point is that this board has to decide whether there's a hardship. And the wetlands that are, came with this land, I mean, it was purchased with the understanding that the wetlands are there. So there are certain limitations. I don't view that as necessarily a hardship. I have to believe that there's a use for this property that would be more compliant with the limitations of the parcel. That's my comments.
Sarah?
I would just like to clarify that it was stated, and I'm kind of stuck on this, that this is a land usage that is not accounted for in the zoning regulations, and it certainly doesn't appear under this zone and what is allowed. So special permit would be the purview of the Planning and Zoning Board, correct?
Mr. Harris?
Mr. Chairman, if the board approves this project, they'll be applying for a special exception, which is different than a special permit.
Special exception to allow this usage.
Correct.
Correct, okay. I'm not sure that I feel comfortable voting on setbacks when there's no precedent for this usage in the area. And with respect to the setbacks, I agree with Howard that, you know, you're left with 2.5 acres on a land that has always had these wetland watershed issues. There's got to be something that can be built on 2.5 acres. So I think that it's more a usage question than a setback question, and maybe we're putting the cart before the horse here, voting on setbacks first.
Thank you. Mr. Head, anyone else? Comments? Mr. Vicino?
I'm not sure why the church purchased the property and why they didn't develop it. But we have one thing in front of us today, but that is not the only thing that could be built there. And my thoughts echo my two commissioners that I've heard before me. You know, there's 2.5 acres that are eligible to be built within the zoning regulations, and everyone knows the inherent hardship set up for the wetlands there. There's no reason to think that there may not be another suitable project that can be built on the 2.5 acres. I just don't, I'm having trouble reconciling, you know, that this would be the only thing that would ever apply and that we would have to take that. I think that there is an opportunity for more things to come forward in the future that could build within the space that is known. And, you know, you can't fault anyone for asking, but that doesn't mean we also have to approve it.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, we need a motion.
I make a motion to deny.
Second.
Reason for denial, there was a hardship.
A motion to deny, and we have a second on the motion. Mr. Thomas?
I'm with the motion.
Ms. Ferrante?
With the motion.
Mr. Haberman?
With the motion.
Mr. Vicino?
With the motion.
I'm with the motion tonight. Okay, we're just going to ask you to leave as soon as you can. We have business to finish. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Okay, this meeting will come to order. We're back out of recess. Item number 2.
Item number 2, 990 Naugatuck Avenue, HDD. Stephen Bellis, Esquire, attorney for the Housatonic Terminal LLC, appellant, Recycling Inc. owners, appeal the decision of the zoning enforcement officer on 22nd of May 2015, map 40, block 300, parcel 2.
I'm not sure I'm ready to go again that quickly, but we'll give it a go. For the record, I am attorney Brian Stone from the Pellegrino Law Firm, and I'm pinch hitting for my partner Steve Bellis, who had a conflict tonight, and he volunteered me since I was going to be here anyways. I definitely could skip this right now. But with me tonight is Mr. James Barrett. He's the principal of the applicant, the sole member of Housatonic Terminal LLC. I thought, briefly, I'd like to just, kind of by way of background, just tell you how we got here. Because obviously this property has some history and some contentious history. Mr. Barrett, and he's going to testify today, so he'll tell you better than I, but Mr. Barrett and his brothers bought this property in 1955. And they operated it up until themselves, 1995. He had retired, his brother operated it, and then in 2006, they sold the property to Recycling Inc. And Recycling Inc. Looked to put a recycling facility on the property. And that was, I'm not going to get into the background of that, but Mr. Barrett took back a purchase money mortgage on the property. The purchase money mortgage went into default. And he entered into a forbearance agreement to reacquire the property from Recycling Inc. This would be just him. It wouldn't, but what it would do is it would enable the property to get back into use and would pay the mortgage off from the proceeds, and they'd end up owning the property again. So that's kind of the background of how we got here. But obviously, he wants to be sure he can use it as he used it before. An application was filed to the zoning enforcement officer for a certificate of zoning compliance. And that's, that's the proper procedure when you're talking about a non-conforming use that you're trying to reestablish on a piece of property. The regulations, if I can find my notes, which section? 6.1.4 of the regulations provides that no non-conforming use shall be restored unless a certificate of zoning compliance has been issued by the zoning enforcement officer and that such use is existing legal non-conforming use. So my partner, Mr. Bellis, prepared an application. And I don't know if you have that application in front of you, but I have copies, which I'll submit as part of the record. It's probably in your file, so it's probably redundant, but I'm going to give it to you. Now, there was a number of things that were attached to the application. The application has obviously some narrative about the types of uses which were carried on by the Barrett family since 1955, and I'm going to call on him to testify with regard to that. And there's a couple of affidavits: an affidavit from Mr. Barrett, an affidavit from one of the players involved in Recycling Inc. I guess at one point she was president, then she claimed she owned the property, and she didn't own the property, and I don't remember the details of all that, but she has an affidavit concerning the applications. And then a permit from the State Department of Environmental Protection for a limited processing recycling facility. And the purpose of this was to reestablish the non-conforming use which had been in existence for, I don't know, 50 odd years. Mr. Harris issued a certificate which I also have copies of for you. Which indicates that the property could be used for what under Department of Environmental, or DEEP now, Department of Environmental and Energy regulations and state statute is a limited processing recycling facility. They issued a permit for it. And I was going to tell you that this is for the first time that I appealed the decision that I didn't disagree with, except that at 4 o'clock today, I found out that I did disagree with the whole thing because this got withdrawn by Mr. Harris. That I don't have a copy of. I have one copy of that he gave me tonight. I did see it on my computer. I got taken aside, not to bore you, but it's one of those things, you know, you go to print, and I have two printers that I can use, and one of them said no toner, and the other one said no, I forget what it said, but whatever it was, I couldn't use either printer, so I couldn't print it. But I had read it, and I absorbed it, and I forgive him because I think his attorney wrote it for saying that we were misleading. Actually, I don't know if my partner was even aware that it was withdrawn because we don't represent Recycling Inc. They're represented by other parties. I disagree with the withdrawal of the decision. Do you have copies, or just one for me, or maybe
I gave you a copy earlier today. I have another one for you if you'd like.
Maybe we could just read it. It's short enough. And I got to figure out what I did with the copy that you gave me.
I was going to read it into the record anyway. I was going to read it.
You're going to read it into the record
anyway.
In any event, it says that what we submitted was misleading because of the fact that the state had withdrawn the permit. And from what I understand after reading that and having a few conversations, that arose because the applicant, this dispute between parties, the claimed owner wasn't the owner, so they took the permit away. The permit had been issued in 2008. Why that matters, I'm not sure. From a practical standpoint and for purposes of this hearing, it doesn't matter to me that Mr. Harris withdrew it. I will tell you that I disagree because the state permit has nothing to do with whether or not the non-conforming use exists from a local zoning standpoint. The state permit, as a practical matter, we couldn't operate that type of facility without the state permit, even if it is a non-conforming use under your regulations. So that permit would be needed. But in any event, that I went online, and that decision is under appeal. I did not make copies for everybody, but I'm going to submit one for the record because I didn't even read it. I mean, what I've submitted, the first couple of pages is if you go on the judicial website and look up a case, they show the case status, and that shows all the filings that are part of the case, and it shows that the appeal was filed and the status of the pleadings. After that is the actual complaint, the actual appeal complaint. There's been other things that have been filed, obviously, but it is pending, and ultimately it'll go to trial. But whether if that case is won, then obviously the permit comes back into existence. If the case is lost, they can reapply for a permit. But either way, the issue of the use, which is what underlies that permit from a local standpoint, is what I take issue with. And the reason that I took the appeal originally, or my partner took the appeal originally, was because we believe that the non-conforming uses were more expansive than the narrow use which he originally said he approved and then today withdrew. So my purpose today is to establish that through the testimony of the person who owned the property and is now looking to reacquire it. Why? Because we're looking to get what's called, and this is a volume reduction facility. The difference is a question of volume. The permit, which is basically a general permit from the state of Connecticut, is based upon a certain volume level. And we believe that the use on this site, the historic use of this site, would allow for the full permit. And that, in fact, was applied for by Recycling Inc. I don't know the status of that permit. It's in limbo somewhere, I suppose. But Mr. Barrett would have to reapply for that permit. But first, we want to reestablish the fact that it is a permitted use because it's a validly existing non-conforming use under the regulations. So with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Barrett if he could come up.
Can we ask you some questions?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Before you go away? You stated that this all came about 1955 to about 1995, I think you said, that it was running the operation that Mr. Barrett had, which was a lot different than the limited processing recycling facility.
No, actually not. And the name may be different, but it's the same operation. They called it salvage then. These terms didn't exist back in those days. But his operation was they had construction and demolition company, and they took that material, brought it to 990, reprocessed it, and sold off the salvageable products. And that's what recycling is. So it was a recycling operation. It had no limitations, and that's what I'm going to ask him to testify to.
Do we have any proof of the operation, any paperwork going back to how it was established and how long it had run?
No, but Mr. Barrett will testify to that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And the affidavits that are attached also attest to that.
My name is Joseph Barrett. My brothers one deceased, one 94 right now.
Mr. Barrett, we need an address from you. We need an address from you.
That's, my address is at 990 Naugatuck Avenue. We hold a mortgage on that property, and back in 1955, June, my brothers and I bought the property from Gulf Oil Company. And because we were dislocated from Stratford, where our office and yard were, on West Broad Street off of 95 when it comes down a ramp. We owned the property in there, and the state took that for the ramp. So this property, the Gulf Oil was offering for sale, and it kind of fit our needs at the time for a maintenance facility and storage for construction equipment and material. The decision, or I guess on the board, I guess it goes back to, they said we never recycled. Well, that's true. We didn't use the word recycle those days. We called it salvaged. And we salvaged in the demolition. We had a demolition company and 6 other different companies that were all under the J.F. Barrett and Sons ownership. It was a family ownership, and we had 6 or 7 different companies in there operating at the same time. Maybe it's not fair for the general public or the boards or some of the townspeople knew it. Mayor Jago knew what we were operating out of there years ago, a fine mayor, Milford. Mr. Donnelly, he was the director of public works. Mr. Benedoso, he was the director of public works. Al Marino lived up the street. He used to be a lieutenant on the police force. I don't know whether all these people are alive yet or what, or are still in the area, but and I wouldn't ask them to come and appear here, even if they were, because Al Marino lives right up as you go out our driveway down to Naugatuck Avenue. He's the second house on the left going south on Naugatuck, and I didn't want to have him embarrassed, himself with his neighbors. I won't put him in that position. But he would, these are people that knew what the Barrett organizations and the different affiliate companies worked out of the 990 Naugatuck Avenue. We had, in 1960, my dad started East Coast demolition, 1946, after the war, World War II. And we operated, like I say, on West Broad Street, Beardsley Avenue, and West Broad and in Stratford. When we moved to Milford in '55, all of that operation came over here. In 1960, we were fortunate enough to get 2 large contracts in the city of Bridgeport for the Lafayette Plaza Redevelopment Agency, and we got the West End job also. We were second on that one. First bidder was disqualified. And there was over 500 buildings, commercial, residential, of all types, up to 9 stories, some of them. The old Time Star building, I don't know if some of you remember that, on Lafayette and State. And across the street from that, there was a big commercial Jewish community center, of which, by the way, I was telling the attorney today, downstairs we have a recreation room, a family room, and I have a bar there for whoever would like to have a little schnapps there. And in that building on the Jewish Community Center, it was multi-level, beautiful building, steel and concrete, brick. They had a beautiful brass, 2-inch diameter brass with ornamental on this end for handrail. So I know just where I'm going to put that. I made a footstool like they have in bars, so you can put your footrest on it. So recycling is, like I say, not the word used back then, but we call it salvage. I mean, we used to bring in the different plumbing fixtures, steel beams. We sold those on Saturdays to the general public, and they were in a warehouse, and they'd come in, and if they needed a sink for an addition and the fixtures for it, we sell it for $10 or $5 or whatever the cost was. Those days, $1 was worth a little bit more than it is today. But anyway, and we ran that outfit, and East Coast Demolition is still in business. I I'm only connected with it because when I retired, my nephew, and he wanted to get active in it. So we went to the State Fire Marshal office. The only way to give him the permit, renew the permit, was if I was the technical advisor, because there was no one else that had the experiences and stuff. So right now I'm a technical advisor to the for East Coast Demolition. I don't know what else I could tell you, but I find it difficult to believe that after all these years, people say that we don't have a grandfather's rights in there, but times have changed and rules and regulations change, so we're going to have to be at your mercy. So whatever you decide, we'll be happy to accept that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Hold on. Howard, you got a question?
Did you just recycle scrap metal? Were you a scrap metal place? Is that what it was? Or is it all construction? No, heavy metal? You recycled heavy metal? Is that what you did down there back then? Recycled heavy metal? What did you exactly recycle? Yeah. All construction material, all kinds of construction material from the sites of construction. Okay.
Watch the wire.
Okay. You recycled it, then you sold it. You recycled and you sold it. You sold it off. You separated it and sold it. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Were there other uses on the property as well?
Pardon?
Did you have other uses in addition
Yeah.
to the?
Oh, yeah. We sold oil. We bought there was an oil tank farm that we bought from Gulf Oil Company, and we ran that. We had an original 5-year contract with Gulf Oil, and then the next 5 years we had a contract called Copper's Coke out of Kentucky, and then the next 5 years Shell Oil came in, and we were selling heavy oil. I say heavy oil, 8500. They call it 8500 AC20. It's oil that you mix for making blacktop. It's a heavy oil. It has to be heated. So we did that. And unfortunately, ours was a barge terminal, and New Haven was a deep water port, and they put us. They were undercutting our price, so we couldn't compete. And we only used the facility after that. We leased it out to a Gateway Terminal, Larry Smith, up in New Haven. And Larry and his brother and father, they leased it for, I can stand to be corrected, approximately 8 years. And then we only kept, I say we, the Barrett and Barrett identities there, used it for the diesel fuel and gasoline for our fleet of equipment. We had 120 pieces of equipment, cars, trucks, and heavy equipment. So we utilized some of the tanks for our own use up until my brother passed away, and I was retired before that. So we also had a quarry in Beacon Falls in Connecticut, and we used to bring the crushed stone and aggregates down, and we had a scale here at the facilities. In fact, it's still existing there. And we used to sell crushed aggregate out of the 990 also. We had a warehouse there that Orinoco Orchards, I don't know if some of you remember them, they had a bakery over in Stratford across the street from Sikorsky Aircraft, and they leased out a portion of our warehouse and made frozen pie crust there. And finally, Mr. Winton, a fine man, passed away, and just before he passed away, he sold his business to Sara Lee Bakeries, and they still use the name Orinoco Orchards on a pie crust, frozen pie crust. you're making me think here what the heck we did on it. We just did about everything we had to do on the property, and we had good relations with our neighbors then, but today's another year. So
yeah, well, you know, sir, as you had mentioned, you mentioned grandfather rights, and there have been a lot of laws. A lot of things have changed since you had that operation. A lot of things have changed, and the rights to have all the heavy usage that you have had before are not grandfathered in. So, of course, that's why you're here. The attorney's here. This can be used. We have it right in front of us here as a limited processing recycling facility. But the reason we're here is they want to expand upon it to be a little bit more than that. So.
I hear what you say.
I just want to ask you a few more questions, Mr. Barrett. Mr. Barrett, after you found, when did your brother die?
June 6th, 10 years ago. He's my younger brother. And
is that when you put the property on the market?
No, we had the property on the market because then our next door neighbors at that time was Connecticut Light and Power, Northeast Utility they call themselves. They had interest in it, and they spent about $85,000 doing the research and everything. They had an option on it for a year to buy it, and that was I'm trying to think now. That had to be 1992, 93, somewhere in there.
Did you ultimately list the property for sale?
Yes, yeah. In fact, Frosty Smith, they're a local realtor in here, and in fact, Bob Burcham, you probably know him. He was working on it too.
When you listed the property, was the uses that you listed it for the uses that you would always use for the property?
Yeah, right.
Okay, any other questions for these gentlemen? Okay, otherwise we'll hear from Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris.
I can't hear you.
Good evening. Stephen Harris, Milford Zoning Enforcement Officer. I issued the certificate of zoning compliance when it was applied for with the information that was available in the file. And the file told me that in 2010 the state had issued, or there was a court order that the state would allow a limited recycling. I learned today that in 2014 DEEP had revoked that permit. So I'd like to read the revocation letter into the file. It's dated June 14th.
Stephen, will you just pick up the microphone a little bit? Thank you.
It's dated June 14, 2015, and it reads, the certificate of zoning compliance issued May 22nd, 2015 for 990 Naugatuck Avenue is hereby revoked due to the submission of false, incomplete, and misleading information in the CZZ application, including but not limited to the submission of a general permit dated December 1st, 2010, which was revoked by the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection in its decision dated February 5th, 2014. So because of this, this late-breaking fact, I would respectfully ask this board to hold the public hearing open to next month. That's all I have. I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Harris? No? No? Okay, thank you.
Oh, one more thing. Sorry. I'd like to submit the decision of DEP.
Mr. Harris, I have a question for you then. Within now and the next hearing, what are we looking for? Are we looking for clarification on the information that was submitted?
There may be more testimony to submit, which is why I'd like to keep the hearing open.
Okay.
that it?
We need a motion on this, don't we, from the board? Go ahead, sir. Huh? Go ahead, Mr. Stone.
I'm not disputing his revocation of the permit, and I don't think it's the issue. So I think the issue is whether there's a valid nonconforming use, which he failed to provide for based on the testimony that you've heard. Now, I tried to continue with Mr. Barrett, who I'm not sure you heard him when I asked him whether he listed the property for the purposes, when he listed it for sale, whether he listed it for the purposes for which he used the property, and his answer to that was yes. And I did not get an opportunity to ask him whether he ever intended to abandon any of the uses which he used the property for, or to ask him, and I'll ask him right now, did you intend to abandon any of the uses that you made of that property? No. Okay. And when you sold the property, was it your understanding that it was going to be used for recycling?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And that was in 2006 you sold the property?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you have the permit that was actually issued, which was in 2008. Now, the fact that the permit was withdrawn and is under appeal, that's just a fact. Whether you want to accept that, if that appeal is won or not won, I don't really care. I don't see any reason to continue the hearing because I'm not disputing anything that Mr. Harris has done. I'm just disputing whether or not there's a valid nonconforming use. I appealed when he gave the decision, and it doesn't change the fact that he withdrew it, other than to just make another issue on an appeal. So I don't see any reason really to hold the hearing open. Thank you.
We don't actually have any proof of the operation, and that was one of the things I had pointed out. Yes, this gentleman did own the property all those years, but the usage was not there all those years. It's not like a variance that goes with the land. I mean, the operation did stop, and right now you do have, by the state, you can use again limited processing recycling facility, but you want to expand upon that. So it's like, what is the intention of the recycle
the
area there? I mean, it's beyond why you're here.
But
that's why you're appealing his decision.
What the state permit is irrelevant to that issue. Okay. I have one more question, Mr. Barrett. Did you have any limitation on the volume of salvage of your salvage operation?
In dollars of value? Or
No, just in amounts. Yes.
Tonnage?
Yes.
Oh gosh, just one steel beam would weigh maybe 15, 20 ton. The one I showed you on that picture with the Jewish Community Center, that was 5-foot web, 60 foot long. I mean, tonnage it'd be just a guess, but it was tremendous. I mean,
but there was no limitation. You had no limitation
no,
on it.
No.
So that's the issue. It's not. And again, there's no operation that's going to occur, whatever you call it, salvage, recycling, volume reduction plant, the limited processing plant that's going to occur without a state permit. So we're just trying to determine that we have the local authority to do it. That's our purpose today.
I just had a question. One question you brought up, the inactivity part, you said.
Yes.
Does it mean, because we still have oil storage facility there, probably getting off the subject, but thinking down the road, because we're trying to sell the property and for the best use, and I always look at the use that we had on it. But you say that because we didn't use the oil tanks, I'm going to have to come back in?
Oh, well, I wasn't stating the oil tanks. I was unaware of the fact that you had oil tanks there. It's just that it can be a recycling place, but you're looking for probably an operation like you had years ago, but that doesn't exist with this property at this current date.
I didn't quite hear what you said, but...
You said you had a heavy usage operation, heavy trucking. That doesn't exist. That business isn't there any longer. And it can be used in a limited, in a limited use. But if you want, and you can do that, you wouldn't be here appealing to do more, and that's what the appeal is all about. You want, if we were to allow that right now, you're saying you want to sell it. I mean, you're asking us to give you permission to have a bigger operation there than that's already exists, and then you can sell it. So we.
Yeah, I think what we're
and
trying.
So it really, to sum this up, the zoning officer has brought this to our attention as of July 14th that we might have some misleading information. I don't know how this board can comfortably move forward on this, even to decide anything right now. So I really think that we're going to have to continue this, leave this hearing open, and get to see what information we have between now and next month.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Mr. Stone introduced some new evidence that I would like to respond to, if I may.
Absolutely.
Stephen Harris, Zoning Enforcement Officer. Mr. Stone made a statement saying that the state revocation of the permit was irrelevant. I disagree with that. The state revocation is relevant because the original CZZ was based upon the fact that I believed that they had a state permit. Once I learned that permit had been revoked, then I revoked the CZC, which I just want to make clear and get that on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. So I guess what we have to do, we need a motion to continue this. The hearing won't be closed. We shouldn't close this hearing. We'll just continue it.
I believe that I requested that you keep it open.
You did. So we need a motion to keep this hearing open.
Make a motion to keep the hearing open until next month.
Reasons for maybe clarification on some of the information we have.
Reasons for is in order to obtain some information for clarification purposes.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, this hearing will remain open. Item number 3. Mr.
Item number
Haberman.
3, 262 Seaside Avenue, Zone R125, Maria Caceres, owner, vary sections 4-1-4, front yard projection to 21 feet with 26 feet permitted for deck, map 44, block 432A, parcel 14.
Maria, first of all, we tried to put you ahead of our agenda this evening. Maybe you weren't here? I don't know if you were here.
I came in a little bit late.
Okay.
I apologize.
Because there was so much confusion, we didn't know if possibly you might have been here. Then you could have been spared some of your time. But anyway, here you are, so go ahead.
It's my first time, so good experience to see everything going on. Yeah, my name is Maria Caceres. I live at 262 Seaside Avenue. I am asking for a variance today in order to build a deck on my house. I do have one additional mail form to submit to Meg, if I could do so. So the reason why I am asking for the variance today is, as I stated, to build a deck on my house. My lot is actually located, it's a corner lot, so I'm considered to have 2 front yards. The lot is long and narrow, and because of where the placement of the house was built in 1930. Because of the placement of the house, that's why I'm in need of a variance in order to build the deck.
This is just, what is it going to be, a ground level deck?
The deck is going to be about 18 inches off the ground to basically meet up so that you can walk straight out from the back slider door and just walk straight out. So it's not going to be too high.
You're actually continuing on along the property line with the extensions of the deck and across the back.
Say that again?
You're continuing on with the line of the house.
Yes.
You just want to build the deck on,
Yes.
on that side.
Yes.
And it is in the rear yard.
Yes.
And you have a long rear yard.
Yes.
Okay, questions for this lady?
No, I was curious about the stairs, but she cleared that up for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Looks pretty simple. Okay.
I can make a motion to approve. It's jumping up.
Little discussion?
Maybe we should have a discussion.
All right, hold on first.
Sure.
Is there anyone else here in favor of this application? Anyone here opposed to this application? None? Okay, this hearing's closed.
Okay, does anybody have anything to add? We're all set. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second motion.
The reason for the approval is because there is a hardship with the unique orientation of the lot, and I'd like to base my approval on the survey presented before us today. Thank you.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second on the motion. Mr. Thomas?
With the motion.
Ms. Ferrante?
With the motion.
Mr. Haberman? Mr. Vecino?
With the motion.
I'm with the motion to pass.
All right.
See
Thank
how
you
easy
very-
that was compared to the other ones?
Thank you so much. Have a nice night.
Okay, new business. New business is there's a change in the zoning regulation form, and Meg is going to explain it to us and show us what it's all about.
First off, I think we need to have a motion to add that item of revising the ZBA application form, adding it under new business to the agenda. Can someone make a motion second? And
I make a
vote?
motion to add the application for zoning board of appeals update form.
Second it.
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Continue
you.
on, please.
Thanks. So what this essentially involves is we ran out of the paper copies of the form, and thank you. And there were some things that have gone out of date, some grammatical things, some like no zip code area, and I'd always have to look it up. So if you look, the forms that are in the back of your packets in those, accordion folders that I give you, there's a copy of the old version and the new version. The new version, most of the changes are on the instructions in the back. They should be pretty straightforward. For example, the first item was, it used to say plot plan. Now we actually ask for, a certified land surveyor's copy of the plans. That's indicated. There's the rest of it, a CAM application, there was some language around the short form, which was really kind of irrelevant. So that is just a full CAM application is required if it's relevant to the property with a variance request. The rest of it is really kind of tweaks. There was just awkward wording in some of it. So if you just look at the highlighted areas, if you don't have any issues with those things, there's nothing really substantive that's changed except A2 surveys in lieu of scale plot plans, which has been the requirement for quite a while. If you have any questions about the changes, happy to address them or have Stephen address them. Otherwise, if you want to consider update, the other benefit to this form is it's 8.5 by 11, so it saves a bit of paper when you're submitting copies.
And this form only pertains to the zoning board.
This is,
appeals.
yes, this is your form, which is why staff cannot make the change to it. It's a form that's approved by that's created and approved by the board. This is just a minor revision to the existing form.
Yeah, it just really represents a cleanup of bad English.
Yeah, most of it.
Motion to approve this new form.
Make a motion to approve the form as changed.
Do you have a comment?
Discussion.
Sorry, I just had two further comments. In part 2, do you think you could change 6 copies of a certified plot plan prepared by? Shouldn't it be singular A and plot plan?
Of a plot plan. Sorry, can I see it?
Yeah.
You hold on, there's something there. Yes, thank you. Yes,
Okay.
You're absolutely right. Thank you. As amended by Ms. Iverson, perhaps. Thank you very much. That would have bothered
Okay,
me.
another motion, then a motion to approve this form.
Make a motion to approve the revised application to the Zoning Board of Appeals form.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? None, okay. All right, we skipped over old business. Old business, Mr. Haberman, would you read that, please?
Yeah, old business, ratified vote taken on 13th of January 2015 with the variance request language corrected as follows. 33 Melba Street, Zone R5, Dave Salerno, agent, for OMDP owner, vary sections 3-1-4-1, side yard to 4 feet where 10 feet required, 4.1.4, eve projection to 3 feet where 8 feet permitted, to build a new single-family home, map 29, block 587, parcel 11.
So, Meg, do you want to explain what happened here? This was approved, but there was an error in the...
Right. What actually appeared on the agenda, there was a Scrivener's error. It was basically a cut and paste error when I created the agenda. I went back and listened to the discussion that this board had prior to the vote. It was very clear, also in the video, what Dave Salerno had presented to the board was accurate and reflects the language that Howard just read. So all of the discussion was clearly focused on what the facts as presented that evening were. However, the language that appeared on the agenda that you ended up voting on was incorrect. There was a Scrivener's error. So what this is, on the advice of the city attorney, we've been asked to ratify the corrected language to reflect the intention of your vote and your approval as it happened that evening and incorporate it into a new zoning certificate to be filed on the land records. So what we require basically is to ratify the language that Howard just read in order to correct the land records to reflect the intention of your vote. If you want to put that more elegantly.
All right, we have a clarification on 35 Melba Street as read, so we need a motion to accept it.
Make a motion to read into the record the correction of 33 Melba Street.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Staff update?
We got nothing.
Acceptance of the minutes from June 9th, 2015 hearing. You've looked at the minutes, everyone? No problems, okay? Applications for next month? Well, we know we have one more hearing coming back. Anything else?
Two possibilities. I think one on Merwin, if Kevin gets that in on time, and and some other property I'm blanking on.
Are the applications or the appeals? What are they?
One is a variance and...
there's going to be one more appeal.
Okay.
On a different matter.
The other, who motioned to accept the minutes for last I don't think we had a motion. Can we have a motion? in
Make a
second?
motion to accept the minutes from the June meeting.
Thank
Second
you.
motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, okay.
So we're off the record, right?
This motion is adjourned. Yeah. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Meeting is